the overall agenda.
So move, Bob Lyman, Columbia.
Thank you, Mr. Lyman. Is there a second?
Second, Doug Fable.
Have a second. Any further comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Thank you very much. The agenda is approved. Item number 3 is invocation. Sean Epps has agreed to do the invocation for today's meeting. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. Let us pray, please. God, thank you for the opportunities that you placed before us. Thank you for the opportunity to serve on this board and to interact with each other and to help and do the will of the citizens. Help us to make good decisions here today and help us always to make good decisions that will be pleasing in your sight. As we look and see the opportunities before us that appear to be challenges and difficulties, help us them as opportunities. Help us to view them as opportunities to be good leaders and to display good leadership. Please help us and guide us as we go forth and help us to do your will. Amen.
Amen. Sean, thank you very much.
Amen.
We'll move right down into item C, the regular agenda. Item number 1, financial statement for July 20 through March 31st, 2020. Enclosure number 6 in your package. Ms.
Point of
Jackson.
order. Point of order. Don't we have to approve the minutes of the last meeting?
It was in the consent agenda. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Very good, Ms. Jackson.
Good afternoon, everyone. As you can see, this is the unaudited financial statement ending March 31st. As you can see, we did very good. Everything balanced. Everything looked like the money. We had great pass through. There wasn't anything to be alarming about or to need any additional attention to. And coming out from our audit, again, I'm very happy and very pleased with this financial statement. Does anyone have any questions?
Are there any questions for Ms. Jackson pertaining to the audit? I'm sorry, for the financial statement. Thank you.
Move we accept as recommended or as presented.
Mike Fanning, second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Very good. Moving into item number 2 of the regular agenda. This is the FY 2021 COG annual budget and work program. It's item number 7 in your packet. Mr. Mull.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to give you a brief presentation on our budgeting process. We start early in January with a meeting with all of the directors and the financial staff to discuss our initial consultation. In February and March, we actually sit down and send out our budget request to each of the directors where they report all the revenues and expenses that they expect to have during that first year. So how are we successful? We house these 6 different programs within the COG, and we do this through regional communication, coordination, and collaboration. Our budgeting process starts with getting all of the preliminary budgets and contracts and grants we have already received and those that have been submitted to federal and state agencies. And the management team and directors feel that will be funded. Our first objective is to make sure that our work programs are staffed and that we are maximizing our revenues and charging as little to our local dollars, which are our membership dues. And we want to thank our member governments for always providing that to us. We use that to match our federal and state grants. I'm going to go to the next slide. Our total budget is approximately 14.2 million this year with an operating budget of 7.3 million. Roughly 6.8 million or 50% of the total budget is passed through, which is for our aging related programs and our workforce development services. Regional programs, which are federal and state grant accounts, account for 30% of this budget, while our local revenues account for 17%. The membership dues and state aid that we are receiving from our member governments are used to leverage all of our grants. Next slide. The COG's biggest resource is our staff, their knowledge and expertise. Our personnel costs will always be one of our biggest expenses, but it's our goal to make sure that we're using our grants to match up to the right mix of staff and funding sources. Next slide. Our budget highlights this year again is a balanced budget of approximately 14.2 million with an operating budget of 7.3 million. Again, 50% of the total budget consists of pass-through for our aging and workforce services. Our objective is to continue to build a fiscal foundation for our future. We are requesting for a cost of living increase for staff of 2% this year. And we're going to continue working on capital improvements for our offices in our building. Next slide, please. Our work program highlights include the development and successful implementation of the plans that we do here to carry out our core aging services that are provided for the SC Department on Aging. This year, we are working on the update of our long-range transportation plan and implementation of the CMCOG Unified Working Program and the CMCOG Rural Plan Work Program. As Gregory noted at our last board meeting, we'll be working on our regional hazards mitigation plan and continue to staff the 208 water quality planning management. We'll continue to provide technical services and updating comp plans for our member governments, as well as doing community development administration. As the census numbers come out, we'll be completing a lot of analysis and starting to produce demographic reports for our member governments. And the Midlands Workforce Program will still continue to provide services through our contractors. Next slide. In this budget, we're asking for this is an action item, we're asking you to approve the budget and work program. And we're happy to answer any questions that you may have at this time.
Very good. Thank you, Ben. Are there any questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Mr. Cole.
Good afternoon to all you folks. Ben.
Yes, sir.
Through the, I guess the handout that we got through our packets here, enclosure, I guess 7 here. And I was reading through the budgetary highlights you've got here, and it says some of your highlights, the very last bullet point, or maybe the next to the last bullet point, says the COG's goal is to increase the general fund balance at the end of the fiscal year. And I would just ask, for what purpose are we trying to build a fund balance?
Well, we're just trying to be as efficient as we can. And when I say increase the fund balance, we're just trying to, over the past years, we were actually cutting into our fund balance. So now we're trying to be as efficient as we can and I guess be able to save a little bit.
Okay, well, fund balances are sometimes referred to as surpluses. And then, of course, I don't know how other member governments operate, but you get to a certain extent that you're building a fund balance for a purpose, or either you decide it gets to a certain percentage of your budget, you spend it. So what is the current fund balance?
Current fund balance is.
This is for the COG operations, okay? Correct?
Yes, sir. It's in the last audit, it's just over $1 million.
All right, so we have $1 million, so we're
that's
a little less than 10%.
Yes, sir.
So where is it what's the purpose of the fund balance in the upcoming budget? Are we going to expend that, or we plan to hold to that? They say, according to what I'm reading here, we're trying to add to it. We want to increase it.
Some of the money that we try to save is for, like, if we have to make repairs to the building, like if we needed a new roof, air conditioning, that type of stuff.
Okay, so we have long-term obligations for maintenance. Are we not budgeting for that?
We are doing some budgeting for capital outlays,
Okay,
but we are trying to save a certain percentage, for like I guess you could say a rainy day fund. Like if one of our programs lost some funding, it would allow us to continue to support that program for a period of time.
right. So all the different departments we have contingencies placed in their budgets?
Yes, sir.
I didn't hear.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so when those contingencies aren't expended, they're added to our fund balance, right?
That is correct.
Okay. Is there any recommendation coming from you or from finance director of what percentage or level we build that fund balance before we make a decision what to do with it?
I believe we would like to have between 10 and 15% of our
Between
total
10 and 15, okay.
of our total operating budget.
So we might as well we'll call it 15 million right now, I guess is what we 14,209, we'll round it to 15 million. So at $1.5 million, that's when you've attained what you're stating here is your goal to improve to.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And those funds that, if we have a fund balance, will be used for internal operations only?
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Cullum. Any other questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, John Ando from the comment.
Yes, sir.
Just a question for staff in relation to the budget and work plan. We have a lot of projects in the transportation planning side. Do we believe that there's ample staff to deliver these projects in the upcoming fiscal year?
What we identified in the budget, we do feel that we had the ample staff to address those goals, so yes.
And to address them and complete them by the end of the fiscal year?
That's our effort to do so, but if outside items come up, that could affect the deadline to complete projects.
Is there opportunity if for whatever reason we start falling short to expand and add additional funding for staffing or whatnot?
I think the budget is always considered to be a working document, so we do have the opportunity to amend it and bring it back to the board and ask for those amendments.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Reginald. Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, this is Jim Manning, Richland County Council.
Yes, sir.
Did I understand that this budget includes a 2% pay raise for staff?
Yes, sir. We're requesting a 2% cost of living for staff. Yes, sir.
Well, I just want to express a concern. Richland County Council has had to postpone our budget planning into the next fiscal year because we don't have the information we need to do our budget for the county. There's concern whether we'll need to furlough staff or make cuts. My understanding is that teachers are not getting any kind of step or raise. I'm a little alarmed about the fact that we have that going on and that a council of governments would be given a pay raise. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Manning. Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if I may, we just passed our budget Tuesday of this past week. And although we didn't do across the board cost of living, we did do merit increases for a number of our staff in this past budget, which we passed. To say that the workforce right now is challenging would be a complete understatement, and for quality people that are doing and delivering quality services, it's somewhat difficult right now. Again, in the environment which we're asked to operate and perform and deliver results. So 2%, just from my perspective, would be on the extreme low side from where we've seen for some salary adjustment, I guess, in the entire marketplace. So I would just lend that to the conversation for the rest of the body to think about.
I concur, Mr. Todd. This is Joyce. I concur. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Joyce. Anybody else have any other comments?
Bill
Mr. Chairman,
Leidinger here. Can you, Bill
Yes,
Leidinger
Mr.
here.
Lyon.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
A couple questions. With respect to the balances that you intend to carry, who will make the decision what to spend and for what purpose and in what amount from those surpluses? Will the staff do it? Will the executive committee do it? Or will it come back to the board?
It would come back first to the executive committee and then to the full board.
That is in the event of any expenditure from the reserve fund.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
All right. Second. I'm sorry, with respect to the budget and the work programs, we've had no discussion on the work programs. My questions are concerning areas like why are these the work programs? Which of them are new? What other work programs were considered? Why were these work programs selected over other options? Why were they recommended at the funding levels they are? And what would be the consequences of recommending funding levels either greater or smaller than recommended by the staff?
Each of our work programs, if you look into the document, will have has program priorities that we have to carry out as part of a program. And then we have current and future projects that we're required to do. Through some of these programs are required through regulations, transportation specifically. I mean, we have to have a UPWP, a TIP, various other things, and that's how we determine our what's in the work program.
How many are not specifically required and are optional recommendations by the staff?
I don't really understand that question. They're all everything that's in our work program. All the stuff we do is required.
All right, so there's nothing in there that's optional, only required items.
That's correct.
All right, and the funding levels related to them?
The funding levels are revenues that we know that we're going to receive from each of the funding sources have been included into this budget.
Okay.
Bob Liming, this is in regards to Councilman Manning's point. I'm not opposed to the cost of living, whatever staff decides to call it, but I would remind all that unemployment in South Carolina is somewhere near 20%. Many thousands, hundreds of thousands of people have lost their jobs in the service industry. They don't have the benefit of city, county, state government jobs. And I'm speaking as a former state employee, those benefits. So I would just say, please keep that in mind as we give raises to people whose jobs are protected. There are hundreds of thousands of our fellow citizens who are barely surviving. I just make that point. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other comments?
I'm sorry, but I didn't hear what Mr. Cullum said.
Mr. Cullum said that they just passed their budget and granted some of their employees merit pay based on their job performance.
Mr. Chairman, I'd be glad to restate that for Ms. Abrams if she'd like.
Yes, sir.
I was just to follow up to Mr. Manning that we passed our budget earlier this week, Tuesday of this week, and it included merit increases for some of the key people that we have in our organization, and it's based upon performance and results driven. And if anybody's got any performance issues or results of which we're asking from our staff, maybe it'd be a time to bring it to the executive committee. Being on that committee for a number of years, I've heard none, with the exception of maybe one of which I think has been corrected. But again, 2%, I can't remember what CPI this year was, but it was around the 2% range. So from a standpoint of 2%, I don't take great heartburn with it. However, speaking of Mr. Lyman's, yes, there are quite a number of people that are unemployed now, but I think there are some measures in place that are bridging some of those shortfalls in their employment or payroll situation. I don't know how long that's going to last. And I do subscribe to that theory also, that from a government perspective, you do have somewhat of a protected job in a way of you do your job, you're employed, and some are solely based. So again, we're making a budget that's going to carry over all the way till next year. And I pray every single day that we don't have the same economic conditions that we're living in now next year, not even next month. Again, it's just people. I don't take great heartburn with it. I think some of the staff is really well helping us dispense funds and identify projects and prioritize them in such a manner that we can get the business of the region done. So again, I'm just one perspective of which I just offered to you.
I'm sorry, Mr. Lyman again. I'd like to just ask, I believe the director of the Comet is in on the meeting. I understand that the Comet has just approved bonuses for all employees. I understand for the drivers and mechanics and people like that. Does that apply to all employees?
It's really not.
So Mr. Lyman, Mr. Chairman, may I respond?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
absolutely.
So, Mr. Lyman, in the case of what we call a service recognition bonus, we're using the CARES Act funding that has been provided by FTA for that sole purpose. And we're paying those employees who had to work in these conditions be exposed to the general public as long as they were in a situation where they had an opportunity to potentially get COVID. Those employees that worked from home or had the opportunity to work from home was not eligible for this service recognition bonus. And we're using a separate pot of funding to actually pay for that. I do also want to add that the Comet did adopt its operating and capital budget. We did present it to the member agencies in accordance with the RTA law. And our board has frozen providing that 2% cost of living increase in light of the COVID situation going on right now, but said that they'll revisit it in 6 months, depending on how the financial outlook looks as it relates to sales tax revenue generation and FTA funding generation to see if we can afford that or not. So that could be something to consider for this budget if there's a concern.
So that bonus does not go to management.
It went to management if they ended up working in the office. We had several management positions that worked from home, so they were not eligible for the bonus because their positions was not at risk of potentially catching COVID.
So they had risk by working in the headquarters, not driving a bus or cleaning the facilities.
Yes, because we had some management that actually was out in the field supervising or interacting with customers. So we did a detailed analysis to ensure that if you had a potential risk, you were eligible for the funding. If you did not have a risk, you did not get the funding.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, this is Rusty DePass. I'm the new boy on the block and don't even know most of you because I've never been to a meeting and seen anybody across the table. But I do think that there is some merit to the questioning anyway of giving any kind of raise right now that maybe it sends the wrong signal. Since we're talking in terms of government or quasi-governmental type jobs. And I wonder, taking a page from the comment there, I wonder if it might be appropriate to suggest that maybe the 2% increase be put off and looked at again in 6 months, not wait an entire year, but let's see where we go, what kind of recovery, if any, there is from what we're experiencing now. But I do think there's merit in questioning the idea of any kind of an across the board increase for employees in this particular situation.
Very good. Thank you. I'll remind everybody in the meeting today that this office has been closed to the public during the COVID, but each of our employees have been here on a daily basis during all of this. Just to remind you of that this office has not closed during this entire time, and they've been here faithfully running this business and keeping us on track. So I'll remind all members of that. Are there any other comments?
Mr. Chairman, Mike Fanning.
Yes, sir, Mr. Fanning.
Do we have a motion yet on the floor?
No, sir.
I'd like to make a motion for approval.
Thank you. Mr. Fanning makes a motion to approval. Is there a second?
Second.
Bill Leidinger here. I'd like to make Bill Leidinger here. I'd like to make a suggestion before we vote on the motion. I would request that the staff and the executive committee give thought to having 1 or 2 work sessions for any members of the board that might choose to attend as the budget for next year is being developed, so that when the budget comes back to the board, it's not, frankly, in a fait accompli format, but rather we've had an opportunity to develop an understanding regarding the inputs and the constraints and the realities and the requirements much better than I think they're being understood today.
Very good. Thank you. There's a motion on the floor in a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
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 Very good. Thank you. Moving on, regular agenda item number 2, item number 3, the 2020 and 2027 TIP Amendment Section 5310 projects and closure number 8, Mr. Simmons.
Staff is requesting your approval to add the Section 5210 projects to the 2020 to 2027 TIP and the Human Services Coordination Plan. Next slide. CMCOG is the designated recipient of the Section 5310 program. The goal of the program is to improve mobility for seniors and individuals with disabilities by removing the barriers of transportation services. The program grant funds can be used for capital services, mobility management, as well as operate dispenses. The program goals are to develop, address the special needs for transportation regarding seniors and individuals with disabilities when public transportation is unavailable and inappropriate, to perform projects that exceed the ADA requirements, perform projects that improve access to the fixed route services and decrease reliance on the complementary services, and to perform projects that look at alternatives that will assist seniors and individuals with disabilities with transportation. On March 27, CMCOG released a call for projects for the FY 2018 funding cycle. At that time, we received 2 applications. One application was for a vehicle, the other application for a purchase of service. Mental Illness and Recovery Center requested a vehicle that's ADA compliant at a total cost of $49,000. CMRTA requested purchase of service to perform mobility management at a cost of $375,000. The total cost for the federal amount was $339,723. Next slide. On June 4th, we did a second call for projects. We received 2 additional applications. One was requesting a vehicle, the other was requesting operating expenses. The Babcock Center requested a vehicle at a total cost of $60,000. The Resources requested operating expenses at a total cost of $50,000. That left us with a total balance of $73,000 for the additional requests. In total, for FY 2018, we received $437,533 for funding. The admin that we will address will cost us $24,810. The total project requested I just outlined equal to $412,723. That gives us a remaining balance of 0 for FY 2018. We're requesting these 4 projects be included in the 2020 to 2027 Transportation Improvement Program. Happy to answer any questions.
So move the approval.
Second, Susan Brill.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, very good. We'll move into item number 4, the 2040 LRTP amendment, safety performance measures is enclosure number 9 in your package. Mr. Simmons.
CMRCA has developed safety performance measures for the Comet bus system. We reviewed these safety performance measures and we are requesting to include those into our 2040 LRTP. I've asked Dr. Prince from the Comet to provide you with an overview of these safety performance measures. Dr. Prince?
Good afternoon. As you are aware, I work with the Comet, and John Ando, who's on your committee, serves as the executive director and CEO. My purpose for today is to present information regarding a federal requirement located in 49 CFR Part 6.3, which pertains to the Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan. As a recipient of federal funding, the company is required to have in place a safety plan by July 20, 2020. We are currently coordinating with the South Carolina Department of Transportation as part of a group effort for the development of the safety plan. We have received funding to hire a consultant firm to assist us in conducting an assessment, which will be utilized in the development of the safety plan. And another component of the safety plan is to establish performance targets to address safety performance measures identified in the National Public Transportation Safety Plan. And we are also required to coordinate with the MPO in our area in the development of these safety performance targets. Next slide. We have examined historical data reported in the National Transit Database for the past 5 years, which is reflected in the chart that you see, and this is from 2015 to 2019. We looked at the fixed route and the ADA paratransit services, fatalities, injuries, and other events such as property damage of 25,000 or more in collision tollways. And another item we considered was safe system reliability, which is the miles between road calls for major mechanical failures. And in accordance with our federal guidelines, we are to consider a rate that is consistent in our regional planning area. Next slide. Based on historical data, the Comet realized that there were no reportable fatalities nor injuries for the past 5 years. Therefore, as you can see on the chart, the Comet is establishing a safety performance target at 0 for fatalities, 0 for injuries, and 0 for safety events. And when it comes to system reliability, we're establishing this performance target at 15,000. And this is in line with what's in our current contract with our prime contractor. And the rate will be based on the vehicle revenue miles, and we're using a standard rate of 100,000 based on the size of our organization. The effective date will be July of 2020, which will be in line with the compliance date. The safety performance targets can be adjusted, and FTA does not impose penalties for not meeting targets established by the transit providers. At this time, we're requesting that these safety performance measures be included in the 2040 long-range transportation plan. This ends my presentation, and I want to thank you for allowing me an opportunity to present information about the safety performance targets for the Comet, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
So move.
Second by John
And a
Ando.
second.
Comment.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Hearing none, very good. Item number 5, the 2021-2027 TIP amendment, Lugoff Elgin connector. That is enclosure number 10 in your package. Mr. Simmons.
We're requesting your approval to amend the 2020 to 2027 TIP to add $550,000 in Section 5207 CARES Act funding to perform a 2-year pilot project that would be known as the Lugoff Elgin connector transit route that would serve the Lugoff Elgin area, which is part of the urbanized area of the Coast MPO. I have the Executive Director of the Santee Waterway RTA, Lottie Jones, and the Executive Director for the Santee Nations Council of Governments, Chris McKinney, will provide you with this presentation.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure, as Reginald said, I am the executive director for Santee Water RTA, and we are here to, with our partner, with Mr. McKinney, with Santee Lynch's Council of Government that has, they actually conducted a transportation needs assessment for us. And that's where this rock came out of, that transportation needs assessment. And thank you for allowing us to be on at your meeting and to present to you this information today. And at this time, Mr. McKinney will come in and do the presentation on behalf of Santee Water RTA.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman, board, staff. Chris McKinney here. We'll jump right into the slides. What the product you see in front of you is a result of a 12-month effort, actually, that my staff underwent to figure out where the best place is to establish routes. And this is one of the, this is the collaboration of several routes put into one that's driven by the COVID-19 situation. As you can see, there's 29 stops, 14 in the urbanized area, and it also connects up into the super stop and that connects into the common system, as was requested by the common executive director there, to provide access for people from Richland County to get into Kershaw County and vice versa from Kershaw County to get into Richland County. Next slide, please. So what is the purpose for the route? With the COVID-19 situation, there was three primary things we were focused on: connecting people to medical and social services during this pandemic, making sure they had access to get to food resource places, and to connect them to other services in inside Kershaw County, as well as connecting people to Richland County for various needs to take care of themselves, because right now there's no route running in this area. And so if you do not have a vehicle, people are having to find other ways, which are often more expensive to get to their destinations. Next slide, please. The projections for the route, depending on what the board approves, we came up with 6 times a day, which is what we would advocate for, 5 days a week. You can see the rates of annual costs to run the particular routes. And this time, I'll be happy to answer any questions associated with the slides or the route.
Very good. Thank you,
Bill
sir.
Leidinger.
Yes.
Bill Leidinger here. How much money is Kershaw County putting into this project?
This is, sir, based off of COVID money, CARES Act money, so there will be no match required.
Thank you.
Sorry, does that mean it's all federal funds? All federal funds?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
This is Doug Cagle. I have a question, please.
Yes, go right ahead.
Given that this is an emergency route, what hours of the day will it be operating? Will it be 24 hours a day, or just what are the hours?
No, sir. On the slides, you're on the phone. So right now we're recommending
5 times.
I'm sorry, go ahead, ma'am.
Now, I was just gonna say, if you look at the chart, you can see basically how often it will be running.
Yes, sir. We're recommending 6 times a day, 5 days a week.
Very good. Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, John Ander, the comment.
Hey, John.
I think this is a great route, and it'll finally address the gap between Richland and Kershaw counties that have existed for a long time. Just a couple of questions I'd like to ask. One, you're recommending the 6 times per day, 5 days per week?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, we're recommending 5 times a day. I'm sorry.
5 times per day, 5 days a week?
Yes.
What would be the service span for that?
I don't follow the question.
Service span meaning 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., 6 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Oh, that's to be determined. That's going to be for Santee Water Regional Transportation Authority to work with the local people to figure out what is the best way to meet their needs. So not determined as of this point.
And then what is the sustainability plan after the CARES money runs out? As you know, the CARES Act funding allows us 100% no local match for operating assistance. Once the CARES money runs out and this pilot is fully extended, and we revert back to the traditional FTA funding, is Kershaw County going to provide the additional 50% local match net fares collected?
So I can't speak on behalf of Kershaw County, but those conversations are in the works right now to figure out how do we sustain this long term. So I don't want to speak out of turn on behalf of Kershaw County.
Is it appropriate to have that finalized prior to implementing this so that there's not a potential unmet transit need created in the region if for whatever reason the local match doesn't come to fruition?
Sir, I would advocate to the board that I think Kershaw County recognizes the opportunity that's here, and they know there's a need inside their own county. So I think they have enough time to have the proper discussions to figure out how to meet the needs. So again, I can't speak directly for Kershaw County, but I would advocate that we not wait until that happens, because we will leave the citizens in the urbanized area with no resources to get to where they need to go during this pandemic.
And this is a 2-year pilot?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I guess while I am still supportive for it, I'm gonna just put on the record, I am concerned about the sustainability, and that if Kershaw County is not able to provide the local match at the end of this pilot and this route is successful, there could be a potential unmet transit need situation that the region's gonna have to address, which could result in the discontinuance of a potentially successful service.
Mr. Chairman, Bill Leidinger here. I would agree with John, and I would respectfully move that this matter be deferred until such time that we at least get a commitment from Kershaw County that it will fund the gap that will exist at the end of the demonstration.
Bob Liming, second.
Mr. Chair, Paul Livingston.
Yes, sir, Mr. Livingston.
I think an emergency response route for a period of time is better than no route at all. It may not, let's say if it doesn't happen later on, at least you would have had that route for the emergency time period. So I think that's better than nothing at all.
And I would agree with Mr. Livingston that we definitely need the route to be implemented, but I think the discussion about the sustainability needs to occur and needs to be resolved before so that we're prepared if this route is successful, that and no local match to be identified, that it will go away.
But if you do nothing, it can't be successful.
You're exactly right. That's why I agree with you, Mr. Livingston. We should move forward. We just need to be aware of the potential.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Ms. Dickerson.
I would agree with Mr. Livingston. These are very turbulent times that we're in currently. And I think during the next year, maybe we should put some kind of a stipulation into this, that at the end of the first year, that we can look at a way for them to start to identify sustainability after the 2-year period. So I do support this fully, but I do think we need to figure out a way, Kershaw County, let us know, start to working on a way where they can probably take up and make up the 50% if this is very successful. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dickerson. Any other comments?
This is Bill Leidinger. I would agree with Ms. Dickinson's comments.
Mr.
Yes,
Chairman,
sir, Mr. Cullen.
Mr. Chair, can you clarify the motion?
one more time.
Yes, sir. Mr. Cullen.
I would just tell you, I would concur with Paul Livingston and Joyce Dickerson. I think we
Very good. Is there a motion on the floor?
I would move, we move forward with the 2-year pilot. And I think if everybody has a definition discrepancy of pilot, that maybe we clear that up right now. But as a pilot says, this funding is dedicated for 2 service years only. And I also do think that the C&T Lynch's folks need to communicate with Kershaw County that pilot, if there's no funding available through other forces or themselves, that the pilot comes to an end.
And that's what I'm supporting, Mr. Collins.
I agree.
Very good. Mr. Cullen makes a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that comment.
Second.
Very good. There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed?
This is Rusty DePass. Did Mr. Leidinger withdraw his motion? Okay, all right.
Very good. We are in announcements from committee members or staff and or any reports. Mr. Malden.
We wanted to thank Mr. Epps for his years of service here representing the city of Columbia. I believe this is his last meeting. Mr. Epps, you want to make any comments?
I appreciate you recognizing me. No thank you is necessary. I have enjoyed serving on the board, and it's been an honor to be of service. Thank you.
Sean, thank you very much. We appreciate you.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
This is Mr. Liming. May I have just a question to Mr. Simmons? Because I was kind of not being able to watch. Mr. Simmons, in your presentations and in the attachments that we got for review, in several areas it mentioned consultant and it said TBA. Does that mean to be awarded or to be announced?
TBA, I'm not certain what you're talking about.
In a couple of the materials that we adopted, it said consultant, and then it had TBA. Does that mean to be awarded or to be announced?
That means to be announced. When we hire a consultant, we will announce it to the board who's been hired to perform that task in that project.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. Now, let me ask you, how are consultants picked? Is that through a competitive bid process, or is there a list of approved consultants?
Right now, that's through a competitive bid process, but SCDOT is working on the possibility of putting together a list of pre-approved consultants that would be viable to MPOs and costs to consider. But today, it's through a competitive bid process.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure it was not an arbitrary, we're going to pick consultant A this time and consultant B next time, that somebody goes through a procedure on picking these consultants who are often very well paid.
Mr. Lyman, please note that I asked that question earlier and got a very good response in terms of whether or not that go through a procurement process and how it will be advertised. And also, I also asked that the DBE component be a part of that. So that's that question.
Great. I just want to make sure we do everything to protect the taxpayers' interest.
Thank you very much. Any other comments?
And Mr. Simmons, one last question. In a lot of the materials that we approved today, it says exempt from guidelines, exempt from guidelines, exempt from guidelines. What is the purpose of having guidelines if we exempt?
I think you're referring to exempt from guide share. So what that's referring to is that we have the guide share program, which is controlled by the MPO, and we develop projects and submit them through this MPO planning process to go to SCDOT for funding. But the projects that are exempt from guide share are projects that are selected and identified by SCDOT. And because they're being performed in our region, we have to put them in our tips.
Okay. You understand, just as a citizen, it's very concerning that we have guidelines we recommend to every citizen follow, but then we exempt. So I'm not sure the purpose of guidelines, but I appreciate your answer. Thank you.
That's absolutely not what he said.
Good, thank you. Is there any old or new business?
No, but there would be one final comment, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes, sir.
And this is a shout out to my friends at the City of Columbia. I want to tell them thank you for appointing Sean Epps to the COG. Very professional in all of his actions the years I've served with him. Had a very difficult job in operating and chairing the EPAC committee, of which I want to tell him thank you for his patience and all that he did to bring all of those very difficult items at some time to some sort of fruition and agreement. And again, I would only hope that the city would follow up with another quality appointment like we have in Sean Epps. And Sean, I'll tell you personally, but I'll tell you in front of the group too, thank you so much for your service. You've really lended and added to the conversation and the decisions that this group's made. So thank you again.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Ms. Dickerson.
May I concur with my colleague, and I've worked with you so much, Mr. Epps, and I certainly appreciate all the work that you've done to support me and the committees that we've served on together. Very good job, very good input, and I certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much for your time and service to this organization.
I appreciate all y'all's comments very much. I'm very honored that y'all would say those kind things about me. I've just worked hard and tried to do what I'm supposed to do. So I appreciate it.
Very good. Thank you, Sean. Any other business?
Chairman McDougall, Wilburn and City of Columbia, as we lose an asset in Mr. Epps, I would like to request that staff be made available for the newcomers that are coming to the board to get up to speed so we can really get engaged as Mr. Epps has been and contribute in the wonderful ways he did. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Individual, I guess, up to speed meetings would be very much appreciated.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. We'll make them available.
Thank you, sir.
Any other business?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Motion to adjourn in a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 We are adjourned. Y'all have a wonderful